Hey there, what's going on YouTube? It's Adam here with Retro Repairs, and I've got a big box of junk. So this particular box of stuff is coming to us from Sapporo, Hokkaido, which is located in Japan if your geography isn't so good. Basically what this is a buddy of mine ordered 10 Super Famicoms, so we're going to open these up and see how they go. So these boxes have already been opened. It's already been tested out, but we haven't really looked to make sure they all work and see what kind of condition they're in. So you might notice these are not Super Famicoms. These are actually wheels for a ColecoVision. He had a couple of these kicking around, so gave them to me to check out as well. So that might be a video for another day, but right now we're gonna look at these Super Famicoms. So first things first, there we have it, the Japanese equivalent of the Super Nintendo, or actually the Super Nintendo is the North American equivalent to the Super Famicom, as the Super Famicom came out first. Fairly similar layout, so you have your power switch up and down, reset button, eject button, cassette slot, so they don't call the games cartridges, they just call them cassettes there. Cartridge was kind of renamed for the North American market, I believe. But, I mean, overall, there's like a little crack here, it looks like. And then otherwise, pretty yellowed. You'll also notice that some panels are gray and some are badly yellowed. So what I'm going to do with these, I think, is disassemble them all together and try and put together as many good-looking gray consoles as possible. Might be limited on panel parts, but we'll see how it goes. So there's number one. A little bit of rattling inside too. So probably that's just the broken plastic bits, but I guess we'll see when we open them up. Alright, number two. Again, this one's very yellowed. Cartridge holes are yellowed. This piece is yellowed, whereas on the other one it was still gray, so the bottom's not terrible, but starting to yellow a bit on the front. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how that goes. Here's another badly yellowed one, but we've got a couple good pieces at least. The ring around the power switch, the front panel looks okay. This one is very special. This must have been sitting out in the sun basically all day for the last 25 years. There's not really a single piece on here except for this expansion cover that isn't yellowed in some way. So these ones look a little bit better. This one doesn't look too bad. So we've got a yellowed front panel here as well, and then around the power switch. So I mean, we could even take those same pieces off of this one, and we've got ourselves a good looking Super Famicom. Another one where it's not terrible, but it's starting to yellow a bit around the sides here. The front obviously and the rings here are yellowed, and the controller port, but there are much worse. This one's pretty yellow. Just feels dirty too, so. This one, even the gray part here is getting significantly yellowed. So, definitely not going to have a lot of really good looking Super Famicoms, but again, we'll see what we can make out of it. This one looks like it had a sticker up here at the top, but again, pretty yellowed all the way around. And the last one. This one isn't too bad. A little bit yellowing up along the top here, but the front of it's pretty good. The controller port is pretty good. So that's definitely going to be one that we can work with. So those are my 10 Super Famicoms. What I'm going to do next is just turn them on and make sure they boot up games before we go any further. I want to know which motherboards are good and which ones aren't. So before I boot these up, just a couple of things I wanted to note about the Super Famicom. Firstly, some of the differences. You can see the cartridges obviously look quite a bit different from what you might be used to. On the left we have my North American version of Super Mario World right here, so the same square cartridge you've been used to seeing for the last 25 years. On the right is a Super Famicom game. I don't really know what it is, some sort of dodgeball game. And then below it I have a Super Nintendo test cartridge. So this is good for testing the hardware of Super Nintendo and Famicoms. Fortunately, Japanese models are also NTSC, so the motherboards technically support the same cartridges. It's just the physical size. Like, you cannot fit a North American game into a Super Famicom. It physically doesn't fit. You can, however, fit a Super Famicom game into a North American Super Nintendo. It does fit, you just need to make a slight alteration to the plastic tabs inside. So, just to kind of compare the two side by side, that's what we got in North America, and this is what they got in Japan. Apparently the deal was when Nintendo was looking at bringing the Super Nintendo to North America, they hired a designer who thought the Super Famicom and the European version of the PAL version of the Super Famicom, which is Super Nintendo, looked too soft. The lines were too soft and looked like a loaf of bread. So they hired someone to redesign it to the more boxy version that a lot of us are used to here in North America. Personally, I think the Super Famicom looks better than the North American Super Nintendo, but I've known this all my life and this holds a little nostalgic value to me as well, so hard to say. The other thing to note is the controllers. So this is a Super Famicom controller, and the cord is only about 3.5 feet long. Compare it to a Super Nintendo controller, and the cord stretches over 6 feet long. So again, in Japan, they didn't really put a value on long cord lengths, possibly due to the fact that your living space in most of Japan was significantly smaller than we might be used to here in North America. Someone else mentioned in another video about the Famicom that it also could be because when you played your Super Nintendo, usually you'd have it sitting right here at your feet, playing it, rather than having it on a console or a TV stand kind of like this. So the controllers didn't really need to be long because the power cable was the controller. Just a little bit of kind of background on that for you. So moving right along here, we're gonna power these up and test them out. You might be asking, what type of power cable do you use for the Super Famicom? And it's not the same as the Super Nintendo. What I'm using is a Generation 1 Sega Genesis power jack, or power plug. So it fits right in there. It is physically the same size as the NES power plug, but please make note, never use an NES power plug on anything other than an NES. Reason for that is that power plug outputs AC power because the NES converts AC to DC inside. None of these other systems do that. So if you use an NES power plug on a Sega or a Famicom or a Super Famicom, you are going to ruin something. So just don't do it. So we'll plug in the controller. We're going to use the official Nintendo Super Famicom controller for testing, of course. And let's try this volleyball game. Power on. Looks like we are good. Again, my Japanese isn't that strong, so I'm just going to guess that this is start, or one player. I'm pushing buttons, but it's not doing anything. Hopefully, one of my viewers can understand this, because I certainly cannot. But I don't know if it's some sort of backstory to why they're playing dodgeball, or maybe it's like WWE where they have an intricate story and lots of drama. I don't know, but it's a lot of text one way or another. I saw number 1 there, so I think they're bragging about being the best. Oh. So, well, it seems to work. Controller is responding. Yeah, I'm going to say that this is a working system. So, let's try reset. And it did reset the system, so that's good. Power off, eject. That seems to be good. So, we're going to set this one aside and on to the next one. So, system number 2. Looks like we're good. I just want to make sure we get controller input, and I'm going to skip all the rest of this. There we go. Yep, looks like it's good. So I'm not going to go too much further into that. Well, I just want to make sure that reset works. Looks like it does. So another working Super Famicom. So I'm going to go through and do the rest of these. I'm not going to film the entire thing unless I see something out of the ordinary. And then I'll be back and we're going to crack these open and start cleaning them up. Of course, as soon as I say that, we've got one that doesn't work. So I turn it on, got the light, but we got just a black screen. And before, it was actually not even showing a black screen. So a couple tricks that I'm going to try and do to get this working. So what I'm going to use here is some 99% isopropyl alcohol. And all that I'm going to do is take it, got my toothbrush, and just get the pins, cartridge slot, nice and wet with this. Get some alcohol on there. And then just push it in, out, in, out, in, out. Do that a bunch of times, and hopefully it will pick up some of the grime off the pins. Hopefully it's just a dirty cartridge connector, and that's the only reason it wasn't working. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. It doesn't take very long with isopropyl alcohol, maybe only a few seconds. And let's give that a whirl. There we go. Seems to be fine. So, cartridge connector was just a little bit dirty, but otherwise, it looks like it's a fully functional system. So I've tested out all 10 of these Super Famicoms, and they seem to work no problem. A couple of them I needed to clean out the cartridge slot a little bit, but otherwise they work just fine. So what I'm going to do next is open them up, and we're going to take some of the gray panels, such as the housing of this one and the front panel of this one, and just put them all together to try and make as many Super Famicom systems as good looking as we can. The rest of them, I'm going to try and de-yellow some of this plastic, although some of them are pretty far gone, and see how that goes. So this is going to be a multi-part series, probably about 3 videos, 3 or 4 maybe, depending on how long it takes. So part 2, I'm going to start opening these up and switch them together, or switch the panels together and clean them up. So be sure to check that one out. It should be uploaded shortly after this, if not now by the time you're watching this. So I'll try and link it to it at the end of this video. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Be sure to give it a like and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's something that you want to see me try and work on here. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.